I'm so excited to come. I've practiced like a million times. I totally lost my voice. But you'll forgive me. I'll talk loud. I'll try. And if anything, I might push it back to Ian to help her. But again, thanks for coming out. It's really exciting to see everyone. And yeah, as you mentioned, York, the School of Arts, Media, Performance, and Design was one of the first projects I started working on when I joined EvolveDrupal back in December. And it's been a real pleasure to collaborate with Ian and his team, all the different people out there. So again, we're super excited to talk to you today. A little intro.
Sure, yeah. Thanks. Hi everyone, really happy to be here to just share sort of our ongoing journey. Just to give some background, we started a website redesign project with Evolving Web the beginning of this year. It's actually now in 3 phases. So our website online is not the one that we're redesigning, so it's still the old current state, I would say. So we are now entering phase 2 to 3, which is wonderful to see. By the end of it, we're hoping to launch really early next year after a year to a year and a half of consultation, development, and really working with our community. So happy to share our preliminary findings so far.
Great. So does this resonate with anyone? Who has ever started a project with somebody saying this? Anyways, obviously, people are opinionated. There are lots of opinions out there. There are facts. There are subjective baselines. We have all these different sort of inputs. And what is Discovery really good at? It's helping us maybe get a little bit away from this and really, again, trying to ground our insights, understand one another, where are we coming from. And again, I really wanted to focus a bit more on sort of defining a bit what we talk about when we mean discovery. So again, try to avoid a bit of this and yeah, get a bit more. We'll set the stage and then talk a bit more about the case study. Yeah, so this definition about discovery is what I really like about it is it's in a couple of parts and they're all super, super important. But again, when we talk about discovery, striving to achieve consensus, I think this is even more important than the what we're building, the how, all the little details about it. But really it's, do we all understand what the problem is? Do we all think that the problem is at the same level of priority? Which problems are for right now? Which problems are going to be for way later to solve? And then also what I like about it is the second part. We talk about desired outcomes. It's really important when you talk about discovery, not to jump right into solutioning. We could do this, we could do that. I heard a lot about AI, and there's all the things that we could do. And obviously it's very tempting when you sort of see so much stuff out there. We could do like that, let's just build that. And what I really wanted to focus on for this discovery was, again, it's important to understand with the different groups that we're working with. And in our case, there was obviously the vendor, the client, and all the different teams within the AMPT sort of a community within York University. So again, it's really important to be super aligned on which problems are we solving when, and what are we considering a desired outcome. So a great example in post-secondary education is around usage of, let's say, a contact us form. Let's say, people are writing questions that are easily answerable in the contact us form. What are the admission requirements? What is the application date? And our teams are sort of saying, why am I receiving so many emails every day when we publish this information? So again, in this case, we can think about, we see what the problem is, way too many emails, people are not being self-sufficient, and the desired outcome is a bit out there. We just want less of it. We want to be able to do our work more efficiently. We want people to find the information that they're looking for quickly, and obviously we want them to then take the action to apply. What was interesting to sort of frame it a bit more is that, are we understanding why they're not using the contact form correctly? Are we sort of stepping back, not jumping right into the solution and sort of checking those assumptions? Is it because, okay, maybe the information is buried, it's not clear, maybe the label is wrong? Maybe our users are just too busy. Maybe they're on a mobile device and the form is not loading correctly. Maybe they try to search, they got 0 results. So again, the quest of discovery, as we'll see a bit further on, is really about pulling apart all these different hypotheses, testing them, and again, that's all about the content side of it. Then you also have to deal with the people. So the people have to be aligned, they have to say, yeah, this is the problem, and agree to go from there. So discovery, to sum up, sometimes you're going to be amazed at what you find. It's incredible, we didn't know this is working super well, let's keep it. And sometimes you're a bit more skeptical, maybe there are things you would have preferred not to have discovered at all. But overall, obviously, ignorance in this case is not bliss, and whatever you don't do is going to be technical down the road. So all I just say, really neglect discovery at your own risk. And to finish up with one more definition that I really like, and again, thanks to Hank and our colleague Jesse who presented this at DrupalCon in Pittsburgh. But discovery is really that sort of sweet spot between desirability, feasibility, and viability. So really understanding, again, what do our users want? What does an organization actually need? And what is our Drupal, WordPress, technological environment actually going to allow us to do? And again, it's a really great way to start framing things in terms of constraints. So discovery is not just discovering what, but also what we're not going to do. And I think that was also super helpful for AMP.
Thanks, Adrienne. So just to give folks sort of a brief overview of who AMP is. So the York University School of the Arts, Media, Performance and Design is one of the most comprehensive schools for arts, culture, and design in Canada. We are part of one of the largest universities in Canada, York University, and with a vibrant community and diverse, community of creators, performers, collaborators, globally, locally, nationally ranked for our various programs. What this means when embarking on a website redesign, though, is very opinion stakeholders. So we do have a department of design, we do have a digital media program, we do have folks that are top of their fields who believe they know what best websites should look like. We have very opinionated senior leaders from the dean, associate deans in terms of what they'd like to see, who they're trying to impress, what kind of messaging we want to get out there. But this really interesting part about being situated within a large university also means working with quite a rigid, standard brand, right? So it's the, and literally, for York's branding, one of the main elements is this window of positive change, which literally means putting things in a box. And for an art school, that's totally what we're not trying to do, right? So there's these innate tensions as we were beginning this project of how to find space for creativity, how to land at sort of mutually beneficial objectives. When we were negotiating contracts with Evolving Web, initially it was sort of like, do we really need all those hours for discovery? Can we save costs and time? Because we have senior leaders, staff, faculty who bring these expertise, and they sent us a bunch of website links of what other art schools are doing, or what the best in industry websites look like. But really, the realization is, unlike other art schools who might be able to build a site just for them, our unique challenge was building a creative website that works for our community, but also leverages, our master York University brand so that we're aligned and folks can understand that connection. So just wanted to give you that overview. Our website was previously launched and redesigned during the pandemic in isolation. And it was needed because everything went online. So our communications team prior to my arrival did a complete rehaul of the website with very, very minimal, if not at all, any consultation. So it was based on what they knew the pain points were and needed to act quickly. Fair enough. So this time around, what we wanted to do is make sure we are collaborating, open, and building community along the way. And so I just wanted to show you here from the get-go what our engagement framework is, and perhaps how it compares to how others have done websites and that kind of thing. So our last redesign was really just our communications team. We didn't even have a vendor, just rehauled it ourselves, I think in 4 months without telling anyone. So both internal and external stakeholders really were surprised by what they saw. It heavily leaned towards recruitment because that's what was needed at that point, but did not consider any other type of business objectives. And so this time around, we said we're going to bring in an objective third party, someone who knows what they're doing, like Evolving Web. We're going to make sure that we're consulting with the executive team to make sure that it's in line with that kind of stuff. This third section here, that we're going to do proper consultation. We are not going to rush this in 4 months. We are engaging with all parties, faculty, staff, students. At one point, we tried to engage with alumni. We just couldn't find the contacts at that point. And then this bottom part here, oftentimes if you're within a faculty or department, you try to willfully not look at. We purposely brought in our university partners from the get-go. We said, brand team, you're on board. IT, you're on board. International folks, admissions folks, you're on board. So we didn't want anything to be a surprise, really, here. So I think that's mainly it. Oh, the other thing too with this framework is it's not only who are we engaging with, what are their roles? So I think it was really important for us to be upfront of why we're engaging folks. And collaboration does not mean everyone, everything, every time. It has to be purposeful and it has to be upfront. So for our university partners, we were upfront with them. We're here to make sure we're aligned. We're here, we're sharing updates, but you do not have final approval on our products. You do not have say in how it looks, what content we produce, all of that kind of stuff. And similar to our executive team, we said, listen, you're here to review and approve, but this is being built by the community. And we can make that case for you, both qualitatively and quantitatively, but it's not going to be done by one person's vision.
Yeah, so talk briefly about methodologies, but yeah, before we get to the real discovery, what's really important is that pre-discovery. So Ian showed that great engagement framework. It was super useful. And then we, as the sort of privileged relationship, the core project team and the vendor, we got the behind-the-scenes looks at, again, it really was happening on 2 levels. So we had to sort of understand between us, who gets to do what, who gets to say what, when, whose role is really there. And Ian was super transparent with us also about, look, this department's undergoing some change. These guys are going to have like really strong opinions about this. He really gave us that sort of background knowledge that, in hindsight, I would never do discovery without having that before. Because again, you're just going to learn so much more that as an external partner, you really can't know. We're not the insiders like Ian and his that sort of core team. So it was really, really great for us to then subsequently plan how we were going to approach discovery, which methodologies we were going to use, and again, just sort of not necessarily use a grain of salt, but at the very least interpret some of the feedbacks we were getting, and help us sort of prioritize them too. It's not necessarily just the majority of people say this and therefore it's that, but rather these people say this because, again, their role is there, maybe they have something to lose or to gain, they really, really need this, or they're afraid of something happening or changing that's not going to exactly align with where they're going. So again, we're talking about post-secondary education, so many different players, but at the very least it really helps to share a common understanding of that, and in order to do so, then we're really able to then go into better actual discovery activities.
Can everyone hear me? Do I need the mic? Is that okay? Okay, cool. Is that good? It will help with your voice. Cool. So just to give you an overview in terms of how we undertook discovery for this project, it really was a 3-month process. It was originally scheduled for 1 month. So again, it's like one of those realizations, it takes longer if you want to do it right. We actually use multiple methodologies to really get the right insights that we were looking for. So including a questionnaire, user journey workshop, and a visual design workshop, because as an art school, aesthetics really matters, not just functionality. And then lastly, in terms of stakeholders, we for a community of about 200 staff and faculty members and that kind of stuff, to have 75 folks within our community participate in these different workshops really shows the lengths in which we reached out, gave that opportunity for input, and contribute, really inputting into the final project.
Yeah, so I know about questionnaires and surveys, the why of it. So I really, again, love this diagram that sort of shows it's always in the eye of the beholder. Everyone sees the same thing a bit differently. And for us, it was really nice is that we were able to sort of anonymize them, but at the same time, it was really helpful to sort of collect everything and with that sort of background understanding, okay, this is connecting to this person's role in this department or from this program, or as an alumni, as a student, someone who's interacting with this different target audience, to again help us really create a baseline, understanding that it's always going to be subjective to a certain extent. So again, we really used this methodology to sort of collect all that data, and then we were able to craft the different opportunities for discovery going forward. So I think on the next slide, we'll see Like, let you go ahead there.
Oh, Stimble. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So in terms of just some outcomes or takeaways for us through the surveys and questionnaires that we did, some of this may not be surprising, but there were surprising elements to it. It allowed us to really look at our strategic priorities and actually rank them in priority order. This became really important as we got through the revision and production phase, because we were able to bring back the results of the questionnaire and kind of use that data to refocus folks. So as people were going off about like, wouldn't it be great if we did this too? It's like, cool. But remember when we did that survey, the top 3 or top 5 things we're trying to do here is really focus on recruitment, reputation, retention, and revenue, right? So it's never a no, it's really a maybe not right now, or let's try to find another way to make that work for you, right? It also allowed us to articulate our own differentiators. This is interesting because as a school, as a faculty within a university, we had a very strong understanding what the university stood for, but we've never done the work to formalize and articulate our own faculty differentiators. Everyone kind of knew it culturally, and they would say it and they would share it, but nothing has been done to document it. So this process actually got us to some key, like 3 to 5 points of what we stand for, what we value, how are we different, and how are we aligned with the university, and really just helped. This actually, we brought it back to inform other things beyond the website. So it's now we're using it to look at our lens of communication, approach of engagement, approach for services, because we have specific differentiators for our area. And then last but not least, similar to the goals, getting us to identify our audience segments in priority order. And again, just help to triangulate. Some of these things were sort of, when we were looking back at the data, there were things that surprised us, like potential faculty members really would never have come up in like any given discussion, but it's like, hey, it's true, what we're presenting can attract talent in terms of people who might want to teach under our school, as well as, so we'll get to that a little bit later on. So
now I'm discovering it's really the gift that keeps on giving when you start opening the box. But what I wanted to say also was initially we had sort of said, okay, we'll do our surveys, our questionnaires, we'll go right into workshopping. But what really came out of the sort of distinct approach we had with AMPD was to work on these sort of smaller focus groups. And again, it was a great opportunity for us to really take all that output from the surveys, the questionnaires, sort of hone in on the different divergences and contradictions. As Ian said, how are we going to prioritize this? And what was really nice too was that we did groups with sort of individual types of people, so the core team, representatives from AMPD. But then at the end, we decided to actually bring the students in, and the students were really the contributors. The rest of the core project team were just there to observe. And I love the way Ian framed it. It was really, how can we sort of hold up the mirror and hear it really from that really primary thing that makes AMPD. A crucial part is the actual students, the community, all of these sort of real differentiators that were, not really reflected in the website. And for me, it was also a perfect example of saying, look, it's not something we're building for you, but we're building it with you because it's our community. So as you said also, it's going back to that overall branding exercise. Who are we and how is that being communicated? So in this case, a focus group was really, really helpful to sort of put it all out there. And I remember having the IT team, the branding team there, just to listen, just to hear, just to react. But already I think it made us a lot, the road to implementation was a lot smoother because we took a little time at the beginning to really hold up that mirror.
Mm-hmm. And I will say these workshops that we'll show you moving forward was sort of a pivot. Like when we initially outlined what the scope of this project was, it was to have 10 one-on-one interviews with all of our senior leaders and department chairs. So we were like, no, it's important that they be heard because they weren't consulted last time. And it was actually the Evolving Web team who came back. It's like, we hear you, but can we do this in a more open, collaborative way where we're using those resources of time and people, but maybe hitting home more than just to hear one person out. So to think about the fact that we were going to invest 10 hours of work to listen to 10 people and then turned into 2 really amazing workshops that engage, 70 members of our community. What a difference in terms of choice in your discovery process and what you're trying to achieve there.
Yeah, so again, a little visual example, but again, we generated a lot of post-its. This is one of, I think, maybe 3 journeys that we actually mapped. And again, it was really great to have the different participants, observers, or people even to sort of bounce back, ask questions, and again, a really open forum. I think the students were really, we really focused on students who are quite new at AMPT2, so they sort of had that prospective student mindset still fresh in their heads. And again, it was just very, I think, eye-opening for everyone. And yeah, got to sit up on the riff.
Mm-hmm. And so at the end, these sort of focus groups and workshops really allowed us the takeaways, the tangible takeaways, which again, we use now beyond our website project. This really informs our communication strategy and approach, includes things like audience personas and scenarios, user journeys. Again, like what would they be trying to do online? What are their pain points? What are their needs? What are the actions that's required? And then through those workshops, this is when we started to come up with emerging priorities or gaps in our project. Emerging priorities, like things like, originally we said prospective students. Well, through the workshops, we found it needs to be much more nuanced between an Ontario high school student, a university and college transfer student, an out-of-province student, and an international student, right? Even the idea of alumni and donor persona over here, we realized that we can't assume that it's a mutually sort of beneficial relationship, as in alumni aren't always donors and donors aren't always alumni. And alumni contribute to and through this process, we actually identified the different ways alumni give back to the community beyond donations. So that may mean employing students. That may mean, coming back and doing talks by giving their time. And so because of that, it's now informing how we develop our alumni page, because we talked to folks and kind of opened up this discussion of what are the differences and what are the nuances.
And if I can just add a note about the alumni, that was really special. I talked so much with the director of advancement, Len. Essentially, he had all this amazing content about the different ways to give in a newsletter, in a PDF, all this other great documentation he was sharing really in a more one-to-one basis. And as you said, it was really the basis to say, like, let's redesign the whole experience, bring it into the website, and just create those pathways so that, again, we're not closing off our community to certain target audiences. It was really a way to sort of enlarge that scope to make sure we are addressing it in a way that, again, I hope also for Len, it's a little less time spent creating those and more time just, again, reaching out and connecting with alumni.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. Again, it's a strange, where I try to explain this to folks who, like, outside of the art school environment. It's like when you have people who literally, who know what they're talking about, who can do it themselves, the answer of no means, okay, bye. Like, that it doesn't, qualm them. They go, all right, I'll create my own posters. I'll create my own website. I'll create my own social media because I can. So it's sort of really, for us, we were at the mercy of, like, to prevent that and change that culture, we need to develop a product and a platform that encourages that kind of centralization, contribution. And so, yeah, like for advancement through this process, like you were creating your own PDFs and newsletters and sending it out yourself. And they're like, no one ever asked. And we're like, so how do we move that now to a more public space in a more branded, centralized way? So great, thank you for sharing that.
More digital standards coming on.
That's right. And the last discovery workshop that we did, again, as an art school, having aesthetics top of mind. Actually, if you ask anybody in my faculty, aesthetics trumps function, right? They're like, it just needs to look good. Can it be glossy, right? Like literally the links of websites that were shared was like, look how it moves. Look how, right? And so you're like, okay. And then as a digital, data-driven, user journey focused person, you're kind of like, really? So anyways, but this really was helpful too. So the visual design workshop that was proposed by Evolving Web really brought people together, and we focused on 6 key areas: the use of color, how much brand should we use, How should images be treated? How should, should we use emblems? Should we use like gradients? What kind of layouts call to you? And by doing this, we actually, for each section, everyone that participated was able to rank, which side, like it was sort of polar opposites. Which side did you land on? Were you more on the left? Were you more on the right? And then go through the sticky note exercises of why do you like it? Why do you not dislike it? And then have a conversation of what these groups are saying and sort of arrive at those like, oh, I never thought that, the reason why you want black and white photos is because you need to print it on a black and white printer, right? And it's like one of those things until someone says the reason why they like something and how they plan on using it, then informs how we move forward with some of these things. So, let's see. So in terms of like outcomes for that, this process really allowed us to quickly get at where were we on the same page. So where did we have consensus? Things like we needed it to be bright, vibrant, colorful. No black and white. We want to scream it to the rooftop. We are an art school, right? Then we also identified where there was points of contention. Like, we were hoping to arrive at like across these six elements. Oh, it's actually more left than right. Most of these factors came back as like dead in the middle. We were like, crap. Okay. I thought this was going to get us to a really firm decision. But by knowing which parts were dead in the middle, actually allowed Evolving Web and their design team to then show that in their drafts. And so what came back was a much more focused design. If anyone ever works with a vendor or works in design, the first step is like 3 completely separate ideas to get feedback and then find a way to merge it. Because everyone's like, I like a little bit of A, I like a little bit of B. We all know that, right? This process allowed us to skip that. And the first design was not surprising because people already saw it. People felt bought in because they got to say what they wanted to say. And again, we were able to look at that first draft and say, remember, these are the things that really we agreed on. Now let's focus on the things that we didn't agree on. And these are option A and option B for those elements. So really it came back with a much more focused and expected sort of output. Did you want to? Okay, cool. So I guess just to wrap up for us, again, discovery, as Adrienne warned us at the beginning, is like if you skip it, you do it at your own detriment. As for an art school that thought we knew what we were doing, that thought we knew we can go straight forward into production, we realized that we had much more diverse opinions. We realized that people had great things to say, but from different perspectives. And so really discovery helped us inform not only the project, but our process and our product, right? So it got us to arrive at really clear objectives and priorities, understanding our audience, and it really informed how we then move forward for phase 2, next steps. And again, some of those parking lot items, we now have a phase 4 and 5 list that will keep us busy until like 2025, because it's like great point. Maybe not right now, but maybe later on. In terms of process, again, really, really helpful to get buy-in so that everyone feels heard and that they are part of this change. Really improve the types of drafts and revisions that we were getting, as well as the approvals, right? Like by the time the dean saw the layouts, they had heard what the students had to say. They had seen the questionnaire. So it wasn't a, why did you come up with this, which is sometimes what happens with a consultation, right? And then last but not least, all of this obviously inform now the product that we're developing. All of those insights are informing, usually you develop navigation and all this kind of stuff through like a data-driven approach, like which we did, Google Analytics, or the traffic, where are they dropping off? I think for us, and in this scenario, the qualitative actually far outweighed the value in how we inform navigation, layouts, call to actions, than what the data was showing, right? Because I'm digital and I'm data, and when I bring that to the chairs, it goes over their heads. So the realization that data is great if people understand it and want to hear it. I'm working with stakeholders that are much more qualitative, gut feel, look and feel, and just yes or no, I like it or not, right? So then how do you pivot your discovery to accommodate that kind of value system. And so, yeah, that's basically it. Adrienne, do you have anything to add?
I'm again super wrap up, and just to say, I'm the site. I'm not sure if we have a launch date, Olio, but I'm thinking we maybe should have showed a couple of
the final hooks? Yeah.
Yeah, but we're all super excited, and again, so many really great learnings from the project, and we hope that again you'll find some of the big takeaways for whatever you're all working on as well.
Yeah, and we would not have been able to do this without an objective, qualified external partner like Evolving Web. Again, we're in phase 2, middle of phase 2, beginning of phase 3 soon, and I just connected with the team. I know most projects is like we want in and out as quickly as possible, 4 to 6 months. We need proof. We need, we need to show tangible benefit. So we're an anomaly for trying to do this in a year and a half and in 3 phases kind of thing. But just to give you like another example of like the iterative process of this. So the Evolving Web team developed some wonderful layouts for us for phase 1. Over the summer, we used that as a guide and developed some of our print collateral for recruitment and our annual reports, which I think I've shared a couple cards there for you. And now we're able to bring that print piece back to Evolving Web and kind of say, look how our internal team interpreted what you've created. Are there elements here we want to fold back into the web? Are there elements here we want to clarify as to why we don't want to do that? So for anyone sort of thinking through a project and saying, how long should this take? How many phases? I'm getting pressure to sort of like do things really quickly. There is value in taking time. There is value in the multi-phased approach because of that iterative possibility there.
Anyways, thank you all, and I don't know if anyone has questions. We can open up the floor. I know everyone's really hungry to eat.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you initially had just 1 month for discovery.
Yes.
That period extended to 3 months. So do you have any practical tips on how to sell that?
Okay. Well, do you work in an education institute? Okay. So how we sell it in an education institute, because actually it's not on the vendor side. It's our education operations side. The vendor's like, I'll work as quickly as you want me to, right? Like we have flexibility in terms of resourcing and all this kind of stuff. It was the fact that we couldn't get the dean, associate deans, chairs, faculty and staff all in one room over the summer, like or over the winter months or end of term, right? Like so so depending on your sort of scenarios, like build out a plan that takes into consideration operational demands beyond this project. I think we were likely overly ambitious in wanting to do the thing because we were the last faculty to do a website redesign that's like, hey, we really need to show this. So that's one tactic, like just be mindful of operational demand beyond your project. And in terms of selling it, you can take your time and still show tangible like progress, right? So as long as I think you manage expectations, it's like, this is not final, but here's draft. And again, these workshops really help because it wasn't as if the dean was out of the loop for 4 months. The dean was participating in these workshops. So even though she didn't see a final website yet, she saw it growing. And so some of the feedback I received from leadership is like, it's actually been really informative for me to sit there and listen to our students say why the website was great or not great. Or like, I didn't realize that I should be advocating differently at this other body in the university for our community of researchers or academic staff, right? So I think involvement trumps timelines. So as long as, if you look at it as an end user experience, as long as they're not feeling radio silence for a long amount of time and you're showing continuous progress and involvement, I think, they'll be more amicable to a change.
Maybe as a follow-up question to that, sorry. Maybe as a follow-up question to that, did any of the discovery findings lead into things other than the website, like things that you found out that have influenced other marketing?
It has touched every part of our communications and marketing moving forward. The way we do our recruitment collateral, our service delivery. So like, it's sort of like 2 for 1. We were doing discovery for the purposes of the website, but because the website, we see it as the front door to everything that we do, it made us dig deep into who we are as a faculty. And so the insights, you know, again, we're able to now bring it to our international recruitment strategy and be like, you know, when we did these workshops, these were their pain points. How are we going to address them through events and engagements and communication? So definitely it was not done in a website bubble. Whether or not that's intentional or unintentional, we really appreciate that Evolving Web was able to take that, hear it, flip it back to now we kind of have all these. Even yesterday for Adrienne, I was like, can you send me the folder of all the different reports that y'all produced, like at each stage? And I was like, these are wonderful resources and documents that we now maybe perhaps fold into like a digital standard toolkit and library, that kind of thing. So, hey, Jackson.
You mentioned usability.
Mm-hmm.
You want to get out of discovery. Was there any merit to involve like a technical person at this stage? How did they?
Oh yeah, actually we had Brett who represented the sort of IT-wide function, and obviously the context. York is on WordPress and not Drupal, but I know they have a pretty set library of modules. And again, as Ian was sort of describing, it's hard when you're constrained on the aesthetic as well as the technical side too.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, we actually designed a couple of custom components to again make sure that they can be maintained. We're not doing something that's really just going to break with the next upgrade.
Yeah.
But it was definitely technical discovery was part of it that we didn't really go into here. But it was definitely having Brett here with the more user-focused discovery sides, as well as our own technical architect involved to make sure we weren't going outside of that feasibility playground.
For sure. And like a couple of the constraints we put on Evolving Web from the get-go was like, you're not building on an island. You are building on our servers, in our systems, in our templates, right? So we got them logins to our systems with dual factor authentication and all this. Any plugins that they were thinking about using for, improved functionality was run through our IT folks to be like, is this the one we should be using? Is this the right version? Are there other options? Like we're doing that with our portfolio project right now. It's like, what's the right way to authenticate? So along the way, I think it's, if you can somehow find a way to get your vendor to work as if they're internal, then it really helps to streamline the technical elements. And then to Adrienne's point, the only way the central brand team got on board with this was we said, we are gonna build on your library. We are not building anything net new. If anything, think of it as a reskin. And if you like anything we do, we are happy to share it back with you to give it to the whole community, because you can count on us to push the level of creativity, to push the level of use of media. So the moment they found that mutual benefit of like, oh, you're not breaking our brand, you're building on our brand, and you're willing to share, okay, cool, right? And some of the things that we've done so far, they're like, I've never thought of doing that, but I would love to see that used by other folks in the university. So, but it requires, like, we have a digital community of practice. We have those things where we can come back, give an update, get feedback, pulse check, and then open up those conversations.
If you can go back to the slide, prospective faculty.
Prospective faculties, yeah.
You told something that it was discovered for you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this one. What those percentage mean?
Yeah. So these are so the percentages is not in chronological order, as you can see. I think what we did is we asked whether or not they thought it was important, and then actually asked them to rank them of, would you see it as a primary, secondary, tertiary? So even though half of the respondents said like, oh yeah, I think prospective faculty is important, when it came down to ranking it, they're like, yeah, but maybe not as important as the student experience, right? So we kind of looked at that audience piece in two ways. And then I think we also left a field, because we really went back and forth on like what questions to ask. We left a lot of these fields as like, if there are other ones that we missed, put it in. So this may have also been one of those, like, they put it in and we were like, oh, we would never have thought of that. And then we asked other people and they're like, yeah, that would be cool too. So that's sort of how it came about.
And green, my question?
Sorry?
I'm going to stand up because I'm pretty far away.
Yeah.
So during the user testing phase, we were using Hero and there was like sticky notes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know, if you guys do interactive prototypes for that or screenshots, and what tools do you use? Because before, like,
Yeah, no, it wasn't usability testing of the site itself. It was really just a board we built in Miro to map out for a persona like an alumnus. What are the sort of steps in their journey to become aware of the ways I can get involved? So it was really just a table where we added sticky notes. Yeah, we haven't done any, I don't think, actual prototyping and testing of those prototypes to my knowledge.
We have 10 layouts. 10
Yeah.
of them are fully coded and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's in progress.
Now we'll be doing it more in the wild.
Hey. Yes, please.
In your discovery phase, where you had your questionnaires and then your workshops with participants, I'm curious about how you decide if the feedback you got with the questionnaires, how much is enough? You know, you throw out a questionnaire to, let's say, a large audience of people. You get 10 questionnaires back. Is 10 enough? Is 20 enough? Is 40 enough? You guys said 40. Is 50 enough? Because now you're ranking a lot of important decisions on that information. And of those 40 questionnaires, how much of those were staff? How much of those were students? You know, like, what's the magic number? Like, how did you guys decide?
Yeah. My researcher and me is like, yeah, there's a confidence level and depends on the topic, all this kind of stuff. But I will say, we didn't have a problem with too much feedback. Like I think when we launched the survey, like the first couple of days, like there's been 3 people, like will other people come in? Like, so we had to do a couple prompts, right? But then the multi-tier discovery approach allowed us to kind of feel confident that even if we didn't get enough on the questionnaire, we'll come back at it through the user journey experience and retest that, right? Like always retest your judgments and your outcomes at each stage. And so after the user journey experience, we got 12 or 15 people to participate. We took that feedback and then figured out whether or not, like retested that during the visual identity workshop. So again, it's like, I guess it's the answer is if you can't get enough feedback or you're wondering if it is enough, but you still got to move on with your project, right? Then just make sure that every phase starts with here's a recap of what we've already done. Any surprises, any thoughts, questions, and then we'll note that and then weave it into our next exercises.
Yeah, I think that one would be about, I guess, representativity. Like, obviously, if you're having 0 results from a graduate student population, that's a knowledge gap where you have to kind of really target for the questionnaire or make a point to invite a couple of the students to the workshop just so you don't have 0. But again, it's always a sort of a continuity, and it's you're going to keep learning things along the way. And the tricky part is to say, okay, we don't want to have analysis paralysis and be sort of like, hey, we can't move on. But at the same time, research was one of those things that got pushed into like a later priority, and we realized we didn't have enough input, but it wasn't going to impact moving ahead with the overall design. So we sort of tabled it, knowing that we'll have more in-depth discovery later on. But again, sometimes you have to do what you can and what you have.
And it actually did. It's a good excuse sometimes if you need to push priorities. Like, again, one of these emerging ones was like, we need a landing page for international students. We need to better communicate with alumni. Well, the truth is we didn't get enough international students and alumni. And so we can't make those design decisions and user experience decisions based on maybe 1 or 2. So you go, great point. It sounds like, and I think you said, there's some of these things we need to do a rediscovery. So like, I think when we did our overview, where was it? Here. So EvolveDrupal delivered their discovery findings. In April, we had to do a follow-up rediscovery to these emergent priorities. That included connecting with researchers. We did not realize researchers were so, like they felt snubbed that their research was not being promoted on the website. And we were like, what do you mean? You have news stories and all those things. Like, no, we don't have a page that talks about who we are and what our research is. We're like, okay. So it became an excuse for phase 3, 4, 5, because we needed more time, we needed more people, we needed more engagement. So amazing discussion.
Any last question?
I have a question, though I was going to ask you so much. Maybe we
Okay.
can talk about this. Yeah. The question I was going to ask, I love this presentation, by the way, because groups at McGill that have more of a design focus, like our
our School of Architecture and Arts and Music.
Are they the ones who break the rules?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they often want to push the creativity, and we struggle with working, in a partnership with them. So I wanted to ask about your design workshops.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that idea and this focus on getting qualitative feedback. When you did those, did you show mock-ups or did you provide layouts for people to comment on, or did you do like a crazy eights exercise and get them to like create mock-ups? Like how was
Yeah.
that?
Do you want to step in? We have our designer in
We didn't focus on layouts necessarily. We wanted to keep it fairly subjective, so we focused on colorful layouts versus non-colorful.
Yeah.
Letting the work shine, as opposed to saturating with color and having the eye move around. So the work was the key focus, but we also bring these bright colors, so it's a mix and match. It's separated in a few different sections. Gradients was a big thing too. They didn't want to use gradients, so there was direct comparison between layouts that use gradients compared to none. That made a decision in style scale. It was very simple because we have a market for that.
It was really more mood boarding, right? Like it was like, and these 6 categories, I think, were based like Shane's observations of our current state and some of these elements that they probably wanted to parse out to inform their own work, right? So like you can see here, this is the brand presence bit. The mood board like included some parts from us, but some parts from industry and other non-educational institutions. And so, but again, this was picked based on here's what I think I need to know to inform design and what I'm seeing in your current state that I want to probe in for. So kudos to Shane to even like actually distill that down to have meaningful conversations with their community.
I love it because I feel like the big struggle was providing enough room for discussion and without giving people room to go all over the place. That's where we so that's great.
By the way, Shane is giving a presentation like this about methodologies and styles, so you'll get to learn a lot more about this.